Alright, welcome back. It's time to continue with the capital test sites. Now I've done the Blood Raider capital test site, I've done the Gurista pirate one, and I think today I'll be doing the Angel capital test site, and so I'll be flying the Aeon. Now the Aeon is, I would say, the second tankiest ship in the game. The first place will probably go to the Wyvern, although I haven't really decided on which one of these ships to call the tankiest. But I would say, since the Shield has that insane regeneration rate on these ships, I would say that the Wyvern has the best tank. But the Aeon has a very nice bonus on armor resistance, and it also gets a armor repair bonus. So definitely the tankiest armor tank ship in the game. It also has some pretty good bonus on the new projectile neutralizing burst, but more on that when I open up the ship fitting. Now, the Aeon is, as I mentioned before, a armor tank, and that alone allows you to basically use two implants, the thermal circulation, or basically the drone bomb implant. But today, since today my focus is more PvE, I'll be using the ship with the drone bombs, but it also has a very interesting use with the thermal circulation implant, especially if you want more tank. So this is the build that I have on this ship. 44,388 DPS. Now, the neutralizing burst projectors are good for PvP. They basically can deplete the capacitor of anything within 250 kilometer range, or should I say within the 250 kilometer radius, and it does kinda work like a very big Balgorn. Now, for PvE, you want to make sure that you can reduce the defenses of your target, and you can also add the engine disruption burst, which will slow down the targets, and it also can give points, but it's basically a very big mass web module. While the defense disruption burst is good to reduce shield and armor resistance of the target. So for PvE, now in the medium slots I have one disruptor, the Supercarrier swarm cover module. Now this module is extremely useful, and I would say this might very well be the most important module on a Supercarrier. It does repair armor, does repair hull, and it also does boost shield. It does also recover your capacitor, so a very interesting multi-purpose module that is crucial for all Supercarriers, and I like to use it on all of these ships. Armored command burst, a skirmish command burst, and I have a target painter, but you can use a web, you can use any other module that you like. But the three command burst modules are very important, and they seem to be a crucial part of a Supercarrier. So if you have one of these ships, then these three modules are definitely should be equipped on this ship. The target painter can help at increasing the signature radius of your target, which will make them easier to hit. Can be very useful if the target is moving, or if the target is hard to hit with the fighters. Now, I have heavy fighters. Will not use the light fighters because I don't really have to, since these heavy fighters seem to get the job done so far. Dual armor pairs, capacitor battery, the special damage roll, triple lapis, and one reactive armor hardener. As for the nanocore, we have received some nanocores recently. Only one nanocore is currently available on this ship. It does have some very nice stats, but in a lot of cases you might not like how the nanocore looks, but that's not a big problem. You can always replace the default skin of the nanocore with other skins that you have, or even with the other nanocores that you have unlocked, or if you already have some of them bought or purchased. But since at the moment we only have one nanocore, this is basically the nanocore that you can get for this ship. The stats are pretty good. It does increase the ship damage, and it has a special mode that does enhance the fighters. But at the moment, it's not really necessary to get one of these cores, but if you want, if you like to fight these ships, then I guess a nanocore is always a nice thing to have. At one point, we will also receive the blue nanocores, so that's going to be a very nice alternative as well. So we will see what they will do about that. Now the rigs. So since the capital test sites are kinda dangerous and there is a lot of incoming DPS, I will fit for tank, but I fit for tank because I'll be running the test site solo. And since I'll be solo, then I have to make sure that the ship will survive for as long as possible. But if you are in a fleet, if you have a lot of support, then you can go with a full-on DPS build to enhance that DPS as much as possible. Now, since the Aeon is kind of meant to be tanky, then the tank rigging is definitely going to be the way to go. But as I mentioned before, you can easily use a DPS build on this ship. And here you can take a look at the armor resistance. It has 8 million in armor. That's a lot of hit points. And besides that, you can also add the thermal circulation implant if you want a full tank build. And the Aeon does have some amazing armor stats. Now let me undock and let me show you what I'm talking about.
Undocking.
Absolutely the tankiest armor tank ship in the game. Until the avatar comes out, then the avatar might take the lead, but we will see. Now I think I forgot something. I forgot something very important. I forgot fuel. Now, since these ships rely on a lot of these burst modules, a lot of modules that you can use on these ships does eat a lot of fuel, it is very important that you never forget fuel. Don't do what I did here. Don't undock without the ship being refueled. Now these things can carry so much fuel, and they're basically flying fuel stations. And I'm not even joking. Like, you can fit so much stuff in them. The fuel bay is absolutely enormous. The cargo hold is also enormous, and it can suck up a lot of fuel. So when you refuel the ship, then always make sure that the fuel bay is topped off so that you can refuel if necessary. It will be very important, especially in these capital test sites. After all, you can't loot. You can't leave boxes. You can't do that stuff if some of your teammates runs out of fuel. You can't really give them more fuel, which is kind of dumb. But yeah, that's just how it works right now. Now, the module out, quite messy. I know there's a lot of slots, a lot of modules, but not enough slots for them. So yeah, I'm trying to adjust them in such a way that it's not uncomfortable to look at, but I'm not doing a good job. In any case, let me show you the active tank on this thing. It should be ridiculously tanky. Alright, so let's take a look. 113 million hit points, 8.4 million in armor, 92, 95, 94, 94%. Yeah, this is insanely tanky. Now, the beauty of the Swarm Supercarrier module is the fact that it does replace 3-4 batteries, and you can get your ship to be capacitor stable with only one capacitor battery. That is how much energy the cover module is recharging. And of course, since this is a armor tank ship, armor repairs consume a lot less capacitor than shield boosters. So hitting capacitor stability on this ship is extremely easy. Now, since I am going to be doing some PvE today, I'll be swapping the modules. I have a little bit of a DPS focus build there. I did slap one fighter amplifier and one fighter micro warp drive guide just to make the fighters a bit faster and just to let them do more damage. And I'll be doing the mission. I'll be doing the test site with the drone bombs because the drone bombs are very good for that job. So 44,000 DPS. And let me fit one scanner because I have to scan the test site before I can actually warp in. And then we can actually go and let's find the site. Then let's warp to the site. No signal detected. Okay, that's a little bit weird. Let's try this again after the cycle ends. Alright, now it is a signal that requires 3 scans, which is not that bad. Capital test range spotted. Now don't warp at 0, because if you warp at 0, you will actually collide with the structure, with the gate, and well, let's say that can send your ship flying to 100 kilometers easily, so don't warp at 0 because it's not going to be pleasant if you collide with the gate. So at 3 kilometers should be the optimal distance at which you will not collide with the Stargate. Well, not technically a Stargate, but very similar to a Stargate.
Warp drive active.
Okay, everything is in place. 83, 91 and 90%. A little bit lower, but it should still get the job done. After all, I still have like 8.4 million in armor hit points. These things have so much tank. I wonder how much tank the Titans will be able to pull off. Probably a little bit more, like 50% more or something. After all, they are also 50% larger than the Supercarriers. But, you know, they will be released next month, so yeah, kinda excited. Will be fun to see how they will do. Orbit will be at 21 kilometers, that's the optimal orbiting distance for the fighters, for the heavy fighters, and for the light ones, it's about the same. Although I don't have any light fighters installed on the ship. The most annoying part about these ships is changing the fighters. It does take a long time to do that, and I hope that they do change that at one point, because if anything needs to be improved, then it's that. Alright, here we are. Now the Angel ships will be using the min matter holes. When you jump in, make sure that you focus down the force auxiliaries first, because they do repair really well, and you don't want to spend a lot of time shooting at ships that are being repaired. So the Logi has to go down first, and then you can target the carriers or the dreadnoughts. Now, there was the talk about the infinite fighter spawn. Well, they're not infinite. So some of you guys was kind enough to explain how the mechanics work. So you get a limited spawn of the fighters. So eventually, if you keep shooting the fighters, you will be able to kill them, and then they will not spawn anymore. Basically, the carriers and supercarriers that you might encounter in the capital test site will lose their main source
We're
of
being warp
of
scrambled.
DPS, which are fighters. But since I am solo and since the capital test site does despawn, now it is very weird because with the Wyvern I was able to complete the first room entirely, and then I ran out of fuel in the second room, but it didn't collapse. Meanwhile, the first time when I did the site with the Wyvern, it actually collapsed quite quickly, and it also collapsed last time with the Nyx. So it's definitely a weird spawn despawn mechanic. It's definitely not uh, not going to last for a very long time. So
We're being warp
running them
scrambled.
solo is possible. However, at the same time,
We're being warp scrambled.
I would say a DPS build is required, but if you go with a DPS build, then your tank will be significantly impacted because you are not going to have a lot of resistance. So then you need a logi, then you need logistics and 4 auxiliaries. So this is designed to be played with a big fleet at your side. But since I am stress testing the ship in a way, I like to see how much damage it can take and how much of the site I can clear. Now, so far, I think I cleared the most with the with the Nyx. I mean, after all, the Nyx is known to have the highest DPS. The Nyx can hit 1,000,000 DPS with the more expensive faction fighters, with the more expensive heavy faction fighters, because of how the defense disruptor works on that ship, and just by the sheer amount of bonus that we get in DPS. The Hell and the Nyx are the two Supercapitals with the highest DPS. Now, I'm very curious to see how the Titans will work. I believe the Erebus alongside with the Ragnarok will have the highest DPS output. Meanwhile,
We're
the
being warp scrambled.
Leviathan and Avatar will be known for their tank, although
We're
although the
being
Avatar is
warp scrambled.
the most popular one, I would say. It's an iconic ship, and you can expect those ships to be extremely powerful and extremely expensive as well, which will be interesting to see how it unfolds. I was asked if I will be getting a Supercarrier or a Titan. You know,
We're being
if
warp
given the
scrambled.
chance, I would probably go with a Titan, if given the chance. Although, I don't know how much these ships will cost. Probably will cost a lot. Let's not... I mean, I have to be real with myself. That thing will probably cost a lot of ISK. And with all of my assets, I might be able to afford like 50% of a Titan right now. So yeah, will be interesting to see how that goes. But more or less, when the Titans are announced, I'm honestly kinda excited to see how that will go. How will they run? That's the question here. That I am interested in. Now, the first wave is being cleared. So far, it is running really well. I'm surprised that my shield is still standing, although last time when I was running the Blood Raider capital test site, the lasers did definitely do short work of my shield there. After all, lasers do a lot more damage on shield than they do on armor. However, cannons can generally be good against both shield or armor. It really does depend on the target that you are fighting, but they can generally do well against both. So for this capital sites, You can go with a shield tank Supercapital, or you can also go with a armor tank Supercapital. It should run really well on both. It is only important that you have a good tank. It doesn't matter if shield or armor. A good tank will be able to run this capital site quite easily. Now what was it? The Serpentis capital test site that I haven't done yet. I expect the Serpentis capital test site to be good for shield tanks. After all, Raelians love to shoot armor, but at the same time you can also get a very good armor tank to run them easily. So that's interesting. For Blood Raider, definitely armor tank, because of lasers. It is very easy to tank lasers on armor. So you can use that to your advantage and basically focus more on DPS, but focus less on the tank if you have the specified required tank for the capital test range or test site. They're called test range, but at the same time I like to call them a test site, because I don't know, kinda does sound, actually it does sound about the same, to be honest. And then there's the talk about wormholes that I keep mentioning video after video. I keep mentioning wormholes because of one of the recent announcements that they have made, where they talked about releasing something before actually adding wormholes. But we will see how that will go. Now, angel ships, or in general the angel special sites, are known to have very fast ships. And the main problem that you might encounter with these sites is sometimes your fighters might be
Enemy
slow.
ships detected.
And this is the moment where you want to have the
We're under attack.
light fighters at your disposal, because the light fighters can actually get to them quite easily, and the light fighters are generally good to chase down the smaller, faster ships. You also have the air superiority fighters that I don't usually use because I don't have to chase down small ships, but the air superiority fighters are excellent to chase down small ships like frigates, interceptors, especially if you have the
Shield
speed
damaged.
mod installed in
Shield damaged.
the ship. In my case, at least on the since this is the test server, it's a little bit different, and I don't really have to go to such an extent to fit the light fighters. But sometimes, especially for the angel sites, I would definitely recommend that you go and fit the light fighters. Can be, can help. But at the same time, it's also not really necessary, because you can have some carriers in your fleet that can be specialized for shooting down the smaller targets. Basically, you have a team that's shooting the big ships, and then you have a team that is shooting down the small ships. That way, you can maximize the clear speed, I would say. I did try out to do something like that, and it did seem like it worked. However, if you focus fire on a single target, then perhaps you might clear faster. So in the end, a good fleet composition is going to be important. In any case, the tank of this ship is holding out really well. I have no complaints about the tank on this thing. I mean, obviously have no complaints about the tank on this thing. It is super tanky, and the main thing about this boat is its tank. It is a very, very tanky boat, and so far it's been doing a good job tank-wise. Now 1 second, I have to just do something real quick here. For some reason my frames keep dropping, so I just want to see how warm the internals are. Alright, 85 degrees Celsius. Well, that explains the throttling. Well then, in a second you will see the temperature drastically go down, because I have a interesting way to cool down the tablet. It is hands down the best cooling solution on any phone. I'll probably explain how I do it some other time. Not really the time to, not really the exact time to explain how that works. But my cooling solution is definitely one of the best, because it literally does make the device ice cold, which is basically what I need when I want to max out the performance. This is wave number 2, I believe, which is interesting. Now in the background I'm actually doing some exploration, and I have like 4 sites. There's a large gravitational rift. There is one Nihilus compressed belt. There is a lot of stuff here. I will do a exploration video very soon after this one, I believe, because I just love exploration so much. I have been thinking about doing the, what was it called? I did plan to camp the exploration sites, just because I find that quite interesting, and I forgot to fit the analyzers. I'm the only pilot who does forget to do that. Oh well. Back to the Supercapital here. And so far it's doing well. Absolutely no complaints. Wave number 2 for now. The next wave will also spawn at one point. Also forgot to mention, one of the more, let's say, important things that you will encounter in the Angel test site is the fact that they love to use target painters. Now, when I was running the Blood Raider test site, they have been using a lot of Nosferatus and Nutoides. I mean, that is to be expected, since it is after all, it is a Blood Raider test site, and they love to use those electronic warfare modules. But here they like to use target painters. However, it's not as serious as the Nutoides or Nosferatus, because the target painters already increase your already big signature, so they're not really improving anything, because this thing is already quite massive and it's already difficult to miss. So yeah, you are not going to see any problems with having million target painters on your ship. But you will definitely notice the Nosferatus and neutralizers on your ship. However, they have been buffed. These ships have been buffed. They have a 75% resistance on electronic warfare, which means that the effect of the Nosferatus and neutralizers will be significantly reduced on the supercarriers. I believe that they will have about the same effect on the Titans. About the same effect, I would say. I do expect them to be quite similar with the stats, with the roll bonus stats at least. However, the Titans will not be able to use the fighters, so yeah. They'll have a lot of turrets. They'll be able to use the capital turrets, so that's interesting. I remember seeing the talk about the Doomsdays. How strong will the Doomsdays be? Now, that's a good question. How much damage is the Doomsday going to do? My expectation right now is about 5 to 10 million. At least the focused Doomsday. And the area of effect Doomsday might do about 1 million damage. However, that might be changed. That might be different. I don't know, but we will find out, I guess. But 5 to 10 million for the focused Doomsday, which should not be enough to actually kill a supercarrier in one strike, but it might be enough to kill a dreadnought in one strike. And there is the cooldown. The cooldown might be maybe 15 minutes, but it also could be up to 30 minutes, and also a possibility that it might even have a 1 hour cooldown, which will be kind of fun, to be honest. And who knows what other downsides of using the Doomsday will be present on the Titans. We will definitely find that out very, very soon. Well, so far the test site is doing well. The capacitor is super stable, 77%, with only one capacitor battery. Now, the Dreadnoughts can't really pull this off. The carriers also can't really pull this off, because the Dreadnoughts, in order to pull off a totally cap stable active tank, they have to have at least 3-4 capacitor batteries that are constantly working. Now, for carriers, it is also about the same thing, but for the supercarriers, because of the sheer amount of capacitor that they have, and because of the fact that they have the supercarrier cover module that does work like a capacitor booster, it constantly does give you capacitor. And as long as that module has fuel, you have capacitor. It is really, really difficult to lose capacitor in this ship. Now, why that's the case? Well, big capacitor, very good capacitor recharge rate, and besides the recharge rate, it also has that cover module that replaces a lot of capacitor batteries. It is a very interesting idea, and because it replaces so many capacitor batteries, you can easily pull off a resistance tank with really good stats, while you don't really sacrifice the capacitor stability. And again, that is something that I personally really like about the Supercapitals. The Titans might work the same way, but at the same time, it doesn't really have to be that case. Perhaps the Titans will work like Dreadnoughts, and they will not have the special cover module. So they might be they might require to have those capacitor batteries, but at the same time they also might release those capacitor boosters, and they might solve that problem. Again, we will see. There is still time, and I like to talk about upcoming things in the game because they are quite exciting. I have a feeling that my site will collapse very soon. Doesn't have to be the case, but I just have that feeling. Usually, there is no, let's say, like an exact time of how long the site does live. It is completely random, and I don't know if I am spawning them in a bad way. I don't know if I can actually increase the duration of them being active. If I can do that in a way, then I'm definitely going to try to assemble a Supercarrier fleet, and then I might be able to do something very funny. But at the moment I can only pilot 2 Supercarriers at the same time. I need more devices to run the game on in order to do something more. Two ships left. I usually leave the battleships for the end because the battleships are a bit more difficult to hit. After all, the heavy fighters have a very big explosion radius, so they're not really that good against subcapitals. They do damage, but they're not doing the damage as much as they could have been doing if I was, let's say, using the light fighters. Like 2.6 kilometers is the explosion radius, and 69 meters per second is the explosion velocity, which honestly is quite the difference. It is very similar to how the Raven Striker kind of worked, although the Raven Striker doesn't apply any of the damage, but the fighters do. So that's one difference. That's one big difference, actually. No, I'm not saying that the Raven Striker is bad. The Raven Striker is fun. It can also be improved with the skills, with the rigs and stuff like that, but it is
Enemy ships
not,
detected. We're under
not
attack.
quite what it could be. Although it is to be expected, after all. The siege mode is primarily designed to be used against big boats. Okay, next wave spawned 95 ships, most of which are fighters, heavy fighters, my apologies, light fighters. The next wave has several of these force auxiliaries, which have to be primary because they are repairing a lot, and you definitely don't want to let those things repair your target, because it can be quite difficult to go through their repair. and that's the main issue. The main problem might be those 4 auxiliaries.
We're being warp scrambled. We're being warp scrambled.
But in the end, if you have a good fleet, then it's not going to be a very big problem. Okay, a Force auxiliary has been destroyed. I actually destroyed all of them. Okay, now I'm focusing down on the capitals. But I believe that my test site will collapse in a second. Very possible, because I have already been here for a while, and usually it does collapse within that time. Oh, and there it is. It collapsed. Okay, so I have a feeling that this site lasted a little bit shorter than last time.
Shield damaged.
So I'll definitely try to look for a way to see how to improve how long it can last, because I definitely want to see the last room. In any case, that was a nice little run. The Aeon is absolutely one tanky monster. This thing is, again, the tankiest armor tank ship in the game, and overall one of the tankiest supercarriers in the game, second place. But at the same time, perhaps I have to, I don't know, perhaps I might change my opinion on the tanky list. But at the moment, I would say the Aeon is the second place, while the Wyvern is definitely on the first place. With that being said, hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to support me, feel free to like and subscribe. And with that being said, stay safe, fly safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.